All right, lovely. I heard that. I heard the cup. Good morning and welcome back. This morning we're
The cup.
talking. I heard the cup, which means the sound is
Good,
coming.
good.
All is well and good right about now. This morning we're talking about the weather report, breaking it down just a little bit so that we can understand exactly what we're listening to every single day, multiple times a day. So we spoke about relative humidity. We spoke about what the role of a meteorological forecaster involves. We spoke about the barometric pressure. There are times when it says in the synopsis ridge pattern. There's a reference to a ridge pattern. How does that affect the weather?
Okay. So the ridge pattern. So the ridge pattern is normally associated with fair weather. Okay, it's actually sinking air around 30 degrees north of the equator. Winds would normally blow around a center in a clockwise manner, right? What happens is now before I even get to the ridge pattern, I want to just let you know, the wind systems and ocean currents act as mechanisms to take heat from areas of surplus, for example, around the tropics, to areas where there's deficit, for example, to the poles. So what you have around the equator, you have the ITCZ, which is that intertropical convergence zone. You have winds meeting, air rises into the atmosphere. As it reaches the top, it basically spreads out. So at 30 degrees north, it actually loses momentum, and hence the reason why most of the deserts are located around this region. So at 30 degrees north, you have your Atlantic high pressure system, or that what we would refer to as the ridge pattern. So when that has a strong influence, we basically get conditions like what we are having now, or the clouds would not appear to be that vertical, like they would not be as tall as they would appear at times. It would be more looking like tufts of cottonwood. So that's a good indication, or you would see clear skies. That's a good indication that the Atlantic high pressure system is pretty much dominant.
Oh, so that affects cloud cover as well.
And development as well, because
And
it's actually so a suppressive thought type of it's suppressive in nature because the clouds aren't getting that the opportunity to actually grow, as opposed to at some point when you do have sometimes we mention, okay, there's a favorable upper level environment. That's when
mhm.
you have in the upper level, there are different levels that we would look at. As we'll probably get to it as we speak about the surface to low level instability, if you know, maybe when we do get to that as well.
Okay. Does that always mean that it's going to be a hot day?
When there's the Atlant, whether we
Ridge,
mentioned that is ridge
yeah,
pattern,
ridge
not
pattern.
necessarily. You can have a ridge pattern and still get showers due to the fact that the proximity of where it is to you, because it's still some distance away. What you get is on the southwestern periphery of that high pressure system, you end up with what you call some perturbations or eddies, or the winds actually have a turn in a somewhat a cyclonic direction, right? And within this turn is an axis from where it turns from southeasterly to northeasterly. That's what you call the axis. And just behind the axis, you can get some showers and so forth. And this could happen although the Atlantic high pressure system is there. So it doesn't necessarily mean because it's there and dominant, you cannot get showers. You can get a bit of showers. So it doesn't necessarily have to be hot, but there are times when it actually does dominate. For example, like today, we are seeing
Today.
the difference, and yeah, definitely.
Okay. Makes me want to run outside and look up. All
Yeah,
right. So you mentioned instability, and there's another term that's used from time to time: weak surface to low level instability. What is that?
sure. Okay. So now what we do, we look at different levels in the atmosphere because different parts of the atmosphere, we get an indication of what's going on and so forth. So we look at the surface, we look at what we call 850 millibars or roughly 5,000 feet, and there are products that we use to determine this, right? We look at the mid levels and the upper levels as well. The mid levels is about 16,000 feet. The upper levels is 250 millibars, which is like 36,000 feet. Now, from the mid to upper levels, we look for features like upper level troughs and where we are in relation to them. Because if you do have an upper level trough and you're on the eastern side of it, you can find yourself and you have some activity coming in, for example, a tropical wave or even a simple low level trough, right? you can eventually end up with a situation like December 2013, because that's what happened, right? So if there's an absence of, say, that upper level trough, or if we are on western side, the western side now suppresses development. So depending on where you are, you can have a tropical wave coming across, you can have just some moisture. And we get moisture from, we actually have the Atlantic Ocean right next to us. So that's the source of moisture. As the water heats up, wind blows over the surface of the water. That's pretty much moist, and that contributes to relative humidity and increased relative humidity. So when we say surface to low level instability, sometimes it's a situation where the mid to upper levels, there may not be any activity there, but we may have some moisture coming across. There may be just a trough and these sort of things.
I'm going to segue for just a bit. As you mentioned, December 2013, and you're talking about trough systems, that comes up as well from time to time. Explain to us exactly what one. It's in two parts. One, what a trough system is, and I distinctly remember persons saying, "How come we didn't get enough or sufficient warning about December 2013?" It felt as though it was quite sudden. So let's start off with the trough. What is a
Yeah.
trough?
Actually, so a trough, just like that ridge, I mentioned the ridge is clockwise motion of the winds around a center. With a trough now, it's pretty much the opposite. So the winds are actually turning in anti-clockwise manner. So now the winds are actually moving from southeasterly to northeasterly. Now that point at which it shifts direction is where you would find the axis. So, for example, a tropical wave is a trough. Not all troughs, however, are tropical waves, because tropical waves has a different origin. So, in a case with December 20, I must mention with the trough, most of the showers you may find on the eastern side of the trough, so just behind the axis. With that case with December 2013, there was an upper level trough lingering for some time. But I believe I think I was just about finishing up at the university when I got back in 2013 when that occurred, right? I know for sure there was an upper level trough. I believe there was an alert out at that point in time, but I know for a fact there was an upper level trough, and I'm not certain about the synopsis that they had at the time, because it's not something I recall the incident for sure,
Mm-hmm.
what transpired. But as to what was put out at the point in time, I believe there was an advisory at least at that point
Mm-hmm.
in time. But that upper level trough was there for some time.
Okay.
So,
All
and
right.
the next thing, even though that upper level trough is there, that doesn't mean that you're going to get showers right away. It could be just lingering there a week, probably a week and a half, and then at some point you do get the showers.
Right.
So it's very difficult.
Right. So and is it difficult? You mean in terms of predicting
Forecasting
when?
exactly when, but we know as a rule of thumb that once you do have that upper level trough and you find yourself on the eastern side, as long as you have a trough passing through some moisture, it's possible for you to get explosive development and have, because that is and these are the perfect conditions for clouds to develop and grow
Mm-hmm.
when you have these kind of conditions in the mid to upper level atmosphere.
Okay. That's very interesting. Now let's move on to high tides and low tides. So we're working our way down the weather report, right?
Sure, sure.
High tide, low tide. The most I know about high tide is when you go to the shore, the water's up there. Low tide, the water's down there. Beach looks a little bit bigger. Am I
Yeah, it
right?
looks that way. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. It's actually astronomical data. It's actually this way because of an orbital relationship between Sun, Moon, causing gravitational pull. So what happens? It creates this because of this gravitational pull. It creates what you call bulges in the ocean, and these bulges, they move across the Earth, run into land, causing the water level to increase or decrease. Now, before, there were the use of tidal gauges to actually calculate these, but now there's now the use of GPS, radar, and other tools, and they're fed into a computer, a CPU, well, supercomputer is what they call it. And there are models that actually have equations to satisfy the factors that influences the tides, and that's how they predict the high and low. It's not something that is being done here. It's something that is done one of the bodies that responsible for these kind of phenomena, NOAA, the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration. And these are provided for us on like a monthly basis, or in the case of the sunrise and sunset tables, you can actually have this information at the 4th of January for the entire year.
For the entire year?
For the sunset and sunrise table, believe it or not.
Wow. I only
Yes.
noticed the differences in sunrise and sunset Christmas time.
Oh yeah.
Right.
It
So they
changes.
would it at that time. So could I break it down in saying that there are little hills in the water in the sea at
Um,
times?
you would say bulges, but yeah, it's basically tides. Yeah,
Like a little
tides.
something. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. The sun and the moon and everything works. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you said that's already preset. That's interesting. Now, what are the deciding factors for weather advisories and marine advisories?
Okay, so the deciding factor, well, of course, for weather advisory in terms of well, rainfall and winds. Okay, so now we have when we speak about, I guess you would hear at times about watches and warnings and these sort
Right.
of things. A watch indicates that whatever there's impending weather in that, and it's conditions are favorable, not occurring at the time, but likely within a specified coastal area within 36 to 48 hours, right? The warning, however, it's either imminent, occurring, or likely within that area within 36 hours or less. So the difference between both should really be your response or your action warranted based on the criteria. Okay. What I can tell you, what you see at times yellow, orange, and red. Now,
Right.
there's three stages of the advisory. There's the flood advisory, there's the flood watch, and there's the flood warning. Now, when you see a flood advisory, there's a set threshold of 2 inches, and this is based on determining the use of model guidance, and basically that threshold, 2 inches. So this indicates that it's a very low risk of flooding. So when you see it in yellow, we would ask the public to be aware and to be alert. When you
Mm-hmm.
see it in orange, we are basically saying that the flooding is possible, and the public would be advised to be prepared, right? And now, if it's in
Mm-hmm.
red, then you should take action to protect your life and family and well property, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
because at that point it means that it's either it's imminent or already occurring. So
Mm-hmm.
what we do basically, we weigh the likelihood of an event versus the impacts, and that's how we are able to come up with this decision as to which of this it would be. I would also like to state that even though the threshold for an advisory, just the weather advisory, is 2 inches of rainfall, this can change because if, for example, yesterday we had a rainfall event and we eventually ended up with, for whatever reason, 3 to 4 inches, 100 millimeters, and we see some activity coming in for the following day, tomorrow, then we cannot think about going in for an advisory. We have to think about either a watch or warning because soils will have already been saturated, so it wouldn't take that much of showers to cause inundation and so forth. So
Oh,
it's not just the threshold of like for the time to come, but what is already experienced.
accumulative.
Yes, as it relates to marine, we more look at winds. Winds determine whether or not we use the different colors. Now, if you hear things such as slight to moderate, chances are it may not. You may only see it in yellow because slight to moderate means that the seas will be somewhere between 1 to 2.5 meters swells. Now, if these swells are from 1.5 to 2.5, generally this is moderate. We would have it in orange, and that's to say you should be prepared for these starter swells. Now, if it is beyond 2.5, then it is expected to be rough, and if it is rough, then that alert we would ask CBS to stay out of the water, and only vessels that are capable of handling these this magnitude in terms of the wave heights should actually venture out. Other than that, you should actually stay in port. And these normally we normally get these kind of conditions with tropical cyclones and so forth.
Okay. What sort of vessels are you saying that should stay on port?
Well, it's what we use for small craft. So um, these smaller vessels that would encounter issues going out in waters that actually would be above 2.5, which would be, we consider rough waters.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So Easter is upon us. I know Easter tends to be a very windy period.
Definitely.
So for those who have trips that are coming up, just regular passengers could pay attention and decide whether or not they want to go somewhere or not, depending on their
Chances
level of
are,
bravery.
yeah, chances are you may just see it oscillating between that yellow and orange. Be prepared, yeah, because the
Yeah.
winds obviously as they the reason you get this is because as the winds blow over the surface of the water, it agitates the surface. So you get these ripples or what we call white caps. So once you see these white caps out, there's an indication that either your winds are picking up or something.
Hmm. Or you should stay home. Both,
Probably.
and that would apply to sea bathers as well, right?
Yes, yes, as well. And
What? Uh
I
huh.
must include that although we spoke about high tide, in times of high tide, the water it's actually exacerbated as a result when you have rough seas. So at time when there's high tide, it's actually even worse. Well, that should be expected.
Okay. Oh, becoming a lot more knowledgeable this morning. I'm gonna be looking at the weather report like a scientist from now on. All right. So somebody says here it's 33 degrees but feels like 21 degrees here in Brooklyn. Um, but the wind 19 miles per hour makes it feel colder. Good morning. I'm gonna use that point. What explain that? It is X degrees, but it feels like
Repeat,
it's the person said it's 33 degrees, but it feels like 21 here in
but it
Brooklyn. But
feels feel factor.
yeah, what is
Interesting.
the
It depends
difference?
on where that person is, because I can tell you, you can be in the shade here, and it feels like 33 degrees, although you're in the shade. And I'll give you the reason. The reason why I tell you, it's depending on where he is. Now, if you're
Mhm,
at in front of, you're standing at a bus stop, for example, um,
mhm.
it's extremely hot, but you hear the tone before 96 degrees in the shade. Now,
Yes.
winds take on characteristics for the places that they are. What we get are what we call maritime winds. But if you're inland, for example, in the capital, Kingston, somewhere under the shade, as long as that wind, the breeze is passing through buildings and so forth, it's gonna, take up your characteristics of, these buildings. So it's going to be hot. Hence the reason sometimes when you're actually at a bus stop, the breeze will blow. You're in the shade, but you're feeling the heat.
Mm,
However, if you're actually standing in front of, for example, somewhere close to the sea, it's a completely different thing. And that's because the wind's actually already taken up the characteristics of the body of water that it's coming across. So the person may feel like that, but I'm not sure if they are next to a lake or, a body of water. So you
mm,
could be 33 degrees measured, but where is that wind coming from? I'm not sure.
mm. Okay. So, in essence, if you want to feel cooler, go close to the shore,
Or
run
somewhere
away
where
from the
you know
winds
where the
and
wind is
condo,
here.
or go on top. That's why Dorsetshire Hill and those higher places feel a
Yeah,
lot
it's a bit
cooler.
different. It's a bit different. And not only colder, the winds would be a bit much higher as well because there's an uninterrupted flow. So where you are, low-lying areas, the winds come into contact with buildings and so forth. There's what you call eddying as it hits somewhere, it bounces off, goes somewhere else. But the higher up you go, there's less traffic, as we would say. So that wind get that uninterrupted flow and it's faster. So not only that, but temperature decreases as you go up. So what we feel here at the airport is something different up La Soufrière. And I know folks who venture up would obviously know that.
Oh yeah,
Stronger
yeah.
and colder.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember the last time I went up there, which was before the volcanic eruption. I think they had I'm not sure if it was an official or a makeshift condenser apparatus. It was like a big sheet. Well, not really big, and it was just like collecting water at the bottom. I'm not sure what that was, but it makes a lot
I've
of
never
sense.
been. That's bad. That's sad.
You've never
Shouldn't even
been,
say this. Yeah.
and
I'll be there soon. Repeat.
you're a weather guy.
Yeah, I know.
If you've never been, you need
But
to take
hopefully
advantage.
soon. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, when they officially reopen it. All
Yes,
right. So
definitely.
we've got 5 more minutes, so we're gonna wrap up with the final question here. What are some of the professions that are dependent? You would have touched on one or two, but some of the professions that are maybe heavily, moderately, or lightly dependent on the local weather report.
I would say, well, the weather report for sure. I can tell you that agriculture, travel, weather is basically a key driver in decision making around the
Mm-hmm.
entire world. What you wear today is as a result of the weather that we're experiencing today. People may not think about it like that, but actually that's the case. If it's raining cats and dogs outside, you're not going to go outside in a slipper. You're going to wear, the appropriate clothing. If it's extremely hot, you're not going to wear chinchilla force, to walk and so forth. That's just
Mm-hmm.
one. Yeah, the plants that you grow as well. Agriculture. Now we're actually in a period where it's a bit dry. We can actually see outside it's getting brown, but
Mm-hmm.
you would want to plant more resilient crops as a result. You wouldn't see if you intend to plant cucumbers, tomatoes. You have to ensure that you have this huge supply of water. But
Right.
according to the situation, we actually adjust. So for travel, because as I mentioned, we are an aeronautical station, so the information that you get every 6 hours, we do this every hour. And if there's, for whatever reason, we have to issue a special report, this could be whenever that time is. If there's an incident, if there's a thunderstorm, if the visibility decreases, a number of things. So I would say the main consumer of what we do is basically at the airport. They use it the most, but the weather
Mhm.
affects us all because in some way we rely on the weather to make whatever decision. People are not going to travel if there's, say, a hurricane coming. The pilots won't take off and so forth. Possibly
I'm not going
pollution
to
down here
get
as
there if
well.
I see. I'm with
And
this.
not only that, but people who commute by sea, if the marine conditions aren't safe, people wouldn't want to travel that way as well. You know, so
That is
it's
true.
very important.
Okay, somebody has a question in here on the WhatsApp. I'm not sure if he has answered. But why does one area experience rain while the other area doesn't? I remember hearing it's called climatic barriers. Is that so?
Can you repeat that? Why one area,
One area it rains and another area it doesn't rain.
as
Making
in
reference
Saint
to
Vincent, or
St. Vincent, climatic barriers. Not too
what
sure.
they do notice, because we do have mountains in the center of the island. I know that we do get showers sometimes, not on the leeward side, but on the windward side, because the winds actually, as they move up on the mountains, we have showers on this side. I'm not so sure if that's the question, that if that answers your question, but you can't.
Perhaps
We do
I'm not
get
sure.
showers. Repeat. Can you repeat that, please?
I think perhaps it might answer the person's question. I hope so.
I'm I'm not so sure where the me when this is some places or not,
I'm not sure
but
either. But sometimes there you stand up in one
okay.
area
But I
until
know
the
yeah, what
doesn't
it
see
happens,
rain.
and we would say it is very difficult to pinpoint exactly where the showers are going to be. I know at sometimes some persons will ask, why you say fair to partly cloud with scattered showers? What is that? But the thing
Yeah.
is, I'm going to share something very quickly.
Uh-huh.
When we say fair to partly cloudy or fair to occasionally cloudy, what does this mean now? Think of the sky as a pie sliced into 8 pieces, right? Now, if you're having one or two, okay, if you eat the entire pie, then think of the sky. Then if you see the 8 eighths of the sky cover, that means it's overcast.
Uh-huh.
1 or 2 eighths, this is octaves, right? One or
Uh-huh.
two eighths means it's fair. 3, 4 mean it's partly cloudy out of the eight. And 5, 6, or 7 of that 8 means it's cloudy. So if you hear fair to partly cloudy, as in the forecast that is done today, it means that you will be seeing between 1 to 4 octaves out of the 8 in the sky at any given time. fair to
Okay.
partly cloudy. If you hear cloudy, then it means that 5, 6, 7 of the 8 should be what you should experience. And mind you, what we do is for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it may not be fair on the mainland, but somewhere in Union, it's something totally different thing. So if you hear the term isolated showers, you may not get the
Hmm.
showers Union, but chances are, you know, we may put out some flash flood watch or advisory. We may not get any showers in Kingston, but over the river is a totally other, um, so this
Yeah,
can
the total
happen.
country.
It's just, yeah, people are up, they cannot
Yeah.
pass because the road is impassable, threat of lahars and so
Right.
forth. So, yeah, so whenever
And
you're
the,
fair to partly cloudy or fair to occasionally cloudy, hoping that, we may look at it a bit differently. Because a lot of people will
yeah.
wonder what it's like.
Yeah. And the weather report does not say exactly where the rain is going to come because you
Oh
don't know.
no, it's
No.
very difficult. What happens? The models that we use because of the resolution, you're able to see up to an inch. However, in the mountainous regions, you actually have more than an inch. So because the base of our knowledge on the climatology and so forth, we know um, it's very difficult to say, okay, it's going to rain in
And
Georgetown and
so,
not here because the islands are so small. However, I would tell you though, it's very difficult to forecast for the tropics as opposed to the um, places like the States. They have what you call automated weather stations, just about in a gridded format across the entire the States. Notice that they can tell you a snowstorm is coming. Today's Wednesday, they can give you a snowstorm coming in New York um, on Tuesday, like days, weeks in advance, and that's because it the resources that they have and recall what I mentioned about pressure, low pressure is going to where the low is and so forth. They're able to track that because there's not that much in terms of uniformity in pressure in these places. But here, because there's that uniformity, it's difficult to forecast where the next low would be. But in these places, it's much easier.
mhm. All
Such is the
right.
nature of the tropics and the geography.
All right, awesome. We have to wrap up now because we're over time by about 2 minutes. I want to say thank you so
Thanks.
much for taking the time out to join us to share everything that you could have within the time frame that we were afforded this morning.
Thanks
And
much.
all the best. Any final thoughts? Final
Okay, sure.
comments?
Thanks much. I want to say thanks much for having me. Please do, if you guys, for those who are listening, can check out our website. We have a 72-hour outlook that covers the next 3 days. It's at meteor.gov.vc, or you can check it out at Facebook on facebook.com/svg weather. You can shoot us an email, svgmet@gmail.com, or just give us a call, 458-4477. And we are here to serve you. Christal, I want to say thanks for having me. And in the future, I'll be happy to come and assist again and give some more details, provide some details, especially before the hurricane season and so forth. Be happy
Oh,
to do
yeah. I'm
this.
going to put that
It's
in
my
the
pleasure.
calendar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and all the best to the
All
entire
right,
staff.
take care.
All
Okay,
right.
thanks much. Take
All
care.
right. Bye bye. All right.